Okay, here we are. Welcome to the Aiden Bird Podcast. This is the first official Aiden Bird Podcast that is going to be recorded both on audio and on video. So hello everybody on the YouTube world. I'm not sure if it's exactly ever going to make it to YouTube. I hope it does, but we're excited for today's guest. We got Logan Bashore here. We might be a little bit awkward because we have never done this before, so we're going to talk to each other, but also talk to you guys. Yeah, Logan, what is up? How's it going?
What is up, Mr. Aiden Bird? Things are going good. Just enjoying my time here on the Aiden Bird podcast.
Well, I'm excited for you that you're able to come on, but also that you've come on more than once, which means you had I'm going to mute this for you. Is that cool? Just in case. So we're just trying to figure out how to get close enough, but we'll figure it out. But no, I'm thankful that you've been able to come on the show more than once. I know it's probably not the easiest thing to do, especially because I'm conservative, but hopefully we can have a conversation instead of just debating ideas. I thought we could maybe in the next episode, if you want to come on. I think the big difference between me and you, and mostly the difference between conservatives and liberals in general, is that we both kind of identify the same problems. I think there's a couple where we differ, but we just have different ways of finding solutions to that. I think yours is more bigger government and mine's less government, and so maybe next time we can look at our two platforms and take different things and kind of piece it together. But for today, we're going to talk about a couple things, and then we have a lot of things from you guys. We had like 45 questions for Logan, and only 3 people had questions for me, and 2 of them were Logan and his brother. So they weren't a ton of questions for Trump supporters. I think there is a bigger majority of Trump supporters here in Utah, and especially people who follow me. But we'll start off with just starting with the mail-in voting, because I know that's something that you wanted to talk about as well. What are your thoughts on the mail-in voting and how it's going ahead here?
Yeah, I think definitely, the facts, they speak for themselves, and we have seen problems with mail-in voting, especially in states like New Jersey, where I lived for a while. I love New Jersey, and I think that there obviously are some issues with mail-in voting where fraud can occur. However, I think especially right now, during the coronavirus pandemic, I think eliminating mail-in voting would be a huge obstacle for this upcoming election. I think there's a lot of elderly people that rely heavily upon mail-in voting instead of coming in and risking their safety or potentially getting sick. And so, although there are potential issues for fraud, we've had mail-in voting in the previous election and in probably every election that's been accessible to mail-in voting. And so, we've seen fraud happen in each of those elections, and it still seemed to work out okay. And so I think, although it's not a perfect system, I think that's probably where we're going to have to go.
Yeah. So I guess my biggest question for that, I've done a lot of research on this, and I know that you don't have necessarily statistics here, so I don't want to dwell on that too much, and look more at the ideology behind the idea of mail-in voting. I think that you're right that there is probably problems with people going to the polls. The 2 biggest things that I think people have a problem with is, one, people are protesting going to vote in person by going in person to protest, if that makes sense. And so I think that's hard for people to see on the news, that you're outside, you're going out and voting, and why can't you go wait in the line and socially distance, wear a mask, and go into a single booth and vote, right? And then the other thing is if you are going to vote by mail, why can't we have the same process of absentee voting? I don't know if you've seen the differences between absentee voting and mail-in voting, but the biggest thing is that you actually request it. You have signature verification. You have ID that you send in. So you're not just sending mass ballots out to people who may or may not live there. Just a statistic that I saw from Portland State University. They did a survey in one Oregon county, and they found that 5% of voters admitted that other people marked their ballots, and 2.4 said that someone else signed for them. And so if that was going to be held up for the rest of the state, that would have been tens of thousands of ballots. And then another, on a bigger spectrum, a report from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission found that the past 4 presidential elections, Oregon had 177,000 ballots listed as undeliverable, almost 29,000 were rejected, and the fate of 871,737 were unknown. So almost, I mean, if you look at all those, there's over 1 million votes, which is a pretty substantial amount. And so I'm wondering if there is a compromise on the Republican, or between the Republicans and the Democrats, where we go and instead of saying, let's just send out all these ballots to everyone. I mean, we've seen that they show up to dead people's houses. While it's not a huge majority, obviously, it definitely could become an issue. And I think that if you're looking for the most accurate way to get an election, I think that's, definitely hinders it. I think you agree with that there could be issues. But would there be a compromise to do absentee voting for the people that want to go vote in person? They still can. And obviously, I think that's a lot of places that still can. But then you might have the problem of having duplicate ballots and different things like that, where people receive it and then they go vote in person. What are your thoughts on absentee voting instead of going purely to the mail-in voting?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely some issues there. One thing that I've always thought about as well would be maybe being able to vote online just within our homes. And I know that's something that's been talked about for a while, and I think maybe that could provide a more secure way to vote. I work in a financial institution. Your whole livelihood, all of your finances are done online, right? Like all your banking information, everything is secure and online. And so I think it's kind of odd that we're unable to vote online. Really, I think that they could definitely make a secure network where you could maybe enter some of your ID information to confirm that you are a real person, that you're eligible to vote, and we could maybe look at other solutions. But I agree with you. There's definitely faults to mail-in voting.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's definitely a proposal that I've seen. The biggest problem that I see with that is the hacking from different countries, right? I think they have a lot easier time going into computer databases and things like that. I think if they had to, I think the most secure way to vote is to go to a booth and do it on paper. If I was president, that's the way I'd do it, because Russians can't hack that. They can't. If you count actual ballots, I think that's the safest way. And another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is that Joe Biden actually went in person to vote, and he's kind of the spokesman for the mail-in voting. If someone like Joe Biden, who's old, obviously a demographic that is at risk for coronavirus, do you think that it's possible that we can do it safely in person, or do you think that that's just off the table?
I think it's funny that you should mention that, since Trump actually voted with a mail-in ballot.
Yeah.
I do think that it's hard because you can social distance and you can wear a mask, which is great. It's definitely what we all should be doing regardless of your political party. However, it's not a perfect solution to the coronavirus. And so there is still a chance that some elderly people or people that have lower immune systems could get sick going into a mail-in voting that might have had a better chance staying home and doing a mail-in ballot. So I think definitely we should take precautions and do our best for those that do want to come and vote in person. Personally, myself, I think I'll probably go and vote in person. I'll wear a mask and social distance, but I think it should be an option for those that don't feel comfortable to go in.
Yeah, and so Trump was an absentee ballot, but yes, still a mail-in. And I think that someone who is Donald Trump's age should probably do that. That's why, if Joe Biden was 40 years old, I think he would have no problem going in person. But being as old, I don't know how old Joe Biden is.
About 70 something.
I think they're about this. I think Joe Biden might be 2 or 3 years older, but not very, very much. But those are the people that. Sorry, your mic was off, but basically Logan was answering my question, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But he said 70,
I think about
74, 75, something like that. So, but no, I definitely agree with you that if we need to be able to help those people that have those underlying health conditions, one, and people who are older in age. And so then this kind of brings me to my next question, that's a little bit different from mail-in voting, but still on the voter kind of spectrum. What are your thoughts on voter ID laws? I know that a lot of Democrats that I've seen, I'm sure there's outliers, of course, but I think the main Democratic kind of platform is trying to abolish voter ID laws. I want to know kind of why that is. Maybe you don't agree with it. You don't have to agree with everything that the party does. But what are your thoughts on why that's a thing?
Yeah, I think the idea behind abolishing voter ID laws is to try to give every person that's living within the United States a chance to vote. However, I actually would disagree with that policy. I know a lot of people that maybe have not obtained citizenship yet, or even have an expired visa or so, that still have other forms of ID. And so I think there's a lot of options for someone living in the U.S. to obtain an ID, whether it's a driving privilege card or a student ID if they're here on a student visa or a work visa. And so I think there's definitely every opportunity for someone that's eligible to vote to obtain an ID.
Yeah, I think I was in a political science class, and I had an argument, and I was called a racist because I thought that voter ID laws should still be in place. And their argument was that it's harder for a black person to get an ID than a white person. And I thought, well, that's a little racist that you think that like they don't have the ability to go get an ID. Like that seems kind of odd. And obviously, you could have a conversation with a conservative that sounds just as dumb. But I just was kind of curious if that's the platform of everybody. But I'm glad that we agree on something. So let's go to immigration reform then, because I think that's a big thing, right? What are your thoughts on a border wall?
Personally, I do not think that the border wall is a solution for the immigration problem. I definitely agree that you should have to come over illegally into the United States. I think that we should make it easier for those who are trying to apply for citizenship to obtain citizenship. However, I just think when I think of the wall and I see pictures of it crumbling, and I think of the amount of money that has been spent, and I look at that last fundraiser that was just done that raised X amount of money, I think it was around $4 million or whatever, and you see how much of that money was used for personal gain when they promised that every dollar of it would be put towards the wall. And I have friends and family that contributed to that donation. I just think, man, how awful is that? And they believe in the wall and they think it's great. I think someone could just go right over it or around it. I know I actually have a lot of friends that while I was serving on my mission, I met quite a bit of people that are here in the United States that are working towards citizenship, maybe didn't come over the right way, but the majority of them came over by airplane. And if they're here illegally, it's because they flew over here in a plane and overstayed their visa. And so no wall, unless it's 10,000 feet high, is going to stop that problem.
Yeah, I think that obviously that problem, I've heard that before, but I don't think there's really an argument that walls don't work, right? Is that an argument that is on that side? Maybe it is. I've looked at statistics as far as like Israel's wall. There's walls all over the place. And a big thing that I've seen, and that's a good argument. I think that the immigration system is flawed, but I also think that everyone was in support of a wall until Donald Trump took office. Obama spoke about it, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, they were all in favor of a wall. And I don't think that that's necessarily, I think there's so much emphasis on the wall that it becomes unattainable almost, and that any win for Trump, because he says he's going to do it, they have to stop him. But I think if we had a wall in place with immigration reform, that where it makes it easier, I don't know, you're probably the most avid listener of the podcast out of anyone, but during the Ali Caceres podcast, I looked into some stuff, and there was families that were torn up because the dad couldn't tell the mom the favorite color that the mom, or their mom's favorite color, so they thought that they weren't married, which is extremely sad. And I'm able to admit that that's a problem. If I had to go in with my wife, I don't know if I'd be able to answer all the questions that are on there. But do you think it could be a compromise to build a wall and then to strengthen the immigration system to make it better and easier for people to come in? I feel like the wall is such a political propaganda almost, that just because Donald Trump wants it, it's the most evil thing in the world, when 5 years ago, before Donald Trump was elected, we were pretty everyone was kind of on the same page that a wall would work, it would help, it would keep the country safer. obviously there are the same problems that we'd have to fix. But I think that if we were to fix the problem of the harsh immigration laws, the people that are overstaying their visas wouldn't be illegal because we'd be able to figure out ways to implement them into the system. So I'll let you kind of give me your thoughts on that. I know there was kind of a lot there, but if we could find common ground and say yes to a wall, yes to immigration reform, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I still am just very opposed to the idea of the wall. I just don't see it as a very valid solution. I think something that could have been done, because they look at the budget that'll be needed to build that wall, and it's around $2 trillion, I believe. And I know there was talk about having Mexico pay for that, and that's probably not going to happen. I don't know really what's going on with that situation, but I think we could have used that $2 trillion maybe to hire more Border Patrol employees and to better enforce that. But I agree with you. I think the greatest solution would just be to fix our immigration policy and reform to help them come over legally and not make it such a hard and difficult process. But yeah, I still, even Donald Trump, there was a quote of him. He was looking at, I believe it was just photos of the wall. And this was a part that was funded by that campaign that was called Build a Wall. And it was funded by his own supporters, and he looked at it and he saw holes and different wear on the wall, and he said, I could be misquoting him, but he said that they built that wall to make him look bad, even though it was funded by his own supporters. And so I think, and I don't think that they were trying to make him look bad. I think they were doing their best to build that wall. It's just walls. If you build something made of concrete, it's going to be pounded in the weather, and so it's something, it'll take $2 trillion to build it, and then just keeping it up and make sure that stays strong and enforced is going to be a very expensive solution to a problem. And so I think there's other solutions to better solve immigration rather than building a wall across the southern border.
So yeah, maybe you can fill me in on why you think that the political shift was so different from when Obama was in office and the wall was needed and now it's not. I just don't know if there's a real good case that there isn't I mean, there should be a barrier between countries, right? Maybe you don't think that we should just have open borders, but it sounds like the opinion on your side, at least, is no wall, let's just let more people in the country is kind of what it is. And maybe that's the case. And I don't know, maybe we have a misconception of what the wall looks like. So this is the Donald Trump border wall, and it's not made out of concrete. But it's these pillars. Is this what you're talking about? Kind of that thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where I'm confused. So I think that the older wall would be concrete and have maybe holes, but how do you have holes in something that is just metal posts?
Yeah, I suppose maybe the photo I was looking at was just their reinforcing of the older wall.
Some fake news, maybe?
Could be some fake news. But, I mean, a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. So, I mean, if you have a hole in any part of that fence along the southern border, there's room for people to come through. And
I think that's why
$2 trillion wasted.
They want to build a whole wall, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, I just feel like there's other solutions with hiring more Border Patrol or I don't know, $2 trillion seems like quite a bit, and saying that Mexico is going to pay for it does not seem like a reasonable solution to me.
So my question is do you think we should have an open border? Because your argument to not having a wall is if any part of the wall is broken, then it doesn't really work. But are you going to have a chain full of guards just holding side to side? Because obviously we can't do that either. So I'm just curious, what is your proposal on how to keep America safe through the border, right? I think that a wall has worked. I mean, we looked at it in Israel and it went down substantially to almost zero people coming in illegally. I think it's fair. I don't think it's racist to want to know who's coming into your country. Maybe you disagree with me on that. I think that if you want to keep a country safe, you have to have borders. Every country has it. You can't walk over to Canada without it. I don't think America should be any different, especially because there are a huge amount of, hundreds of thousands of people that want to come here, right? And I think that we have something great. I don't know if that's the same view as you, but there's obviously something here that people want, right? And I think that it's selfish of us to not want to give that to other people. I think on the far right, you might want to close up the border and not have people come in. I think we should make it easier, but it's obviously not everyone coming over the border is going to be crazy or, a murderer, rapist, or whatever it is. Obviously, that's not the case, right? But if you have like a jar of jelly beans and 3 of them will kill you if you eat them, you're probably not going to eat any of the jelly beans. And if you can vet those better, I think that's fair. And, the money thing, I think that there's so much stuff that we spend on in politics. For example, alpaca farmers from back in World War II still receive huge amounts of money for raising alpaca farms because they created the wool, or I guess not, is it wool? I don't know, the fur from alpacas. And so they got these huge subsidies, and they still get them, but we're not using alpaca fur anymore. They did this chicken testicle research that costs billions of dollars, and that's just so unnecessary. Once a law, or I guess a fund goes into place, it's in there for forever. And I think we need to go back to a zero-based budget and figure out how to do that. But I think, at least on my mind, is security for the nation. I think you're right that there needs to be more leniency on how many people can come in, but I think it's fair to want to be able to secure the border. Maybe you don't want to secure the border, but if you do, what is your proposal then on that point?
Yeah, honestly, if it were my decision, I would not build a wall. I don't think a wall is a very valid way to defend the borders.
So do you have a proposal?
I do. I think probably the best way to stop people from walking across the border would probably be just more Border Patrol employees looking and trying to help that situation. But like I said earlier, the most common people that I would see that were staying in the U.S. illegally came on an airplane and overstayed their visa. And so I don't think the wall is not going to stop that. And I think $2 trillion is a very expensive way to, I don't know, try to stop people from coming over. But I mean, it just to keep the repairs up on the wall and keep that infrastructure strong enough to keep people out will be very difficult. So that's, I guess, my thoughts on the wall.
Yeah, I can understand. I think that, I guess we'll disagree on that. I think that if your argument at the beginning was, we have holes inside of the border, then it's not really a sufficient border, but it's just impossible to have that much border security. But that's okay. We can disagree on things and still go on. So I'm not trying to, we're not going to sit here until one of us budges, because that would be ever. But that's one of the things I want to talk about next, though, is that, me and you are so different politically. In middle school, until recently, we had the, complete different, the biggest rivals in the NFL were our favorite football teams. We were so different, but we had the best times, and we're the best of friends and still are. So I think that's cool, and maybe a message there. And I know that I reached out to somebody, I don't want to give names, to come on the podcast. They said no, and actually reached out to Logan and said, hey, is Aiden nice on the podcast, or is he going to be rude? Is he super rigid? So hopefully, a lot of the comments that I got on our last podcast is that I didn't hold you accountable enough for your ideas. So I'm trying to do that more, but it's not that I think you're dumb or anything. It's just that we're so different politically, and I think people want to see what you think and what your proposals are. But no, I really appreciate Logan coming on here. He's, one of the few liberals that will come on the show. I've asked maybe 30 people to come on the show. Conservatives will line up and I'd have a show every day for the next 5 years, but it's just not the same on the other side. But so let's move on to the COVID stuff. So here's my thoughts as a conservative. I think that COVID is definitely a terrible thing, right? It's something that nobody wanted. It's ruined 2020 for a lot of people, some more than others. You see people who can't go to sports games and they're all tiffed off, but there's also people that have lost loved ones. There's people that have lost their jobs or are in deep financial trouble. So it's hard to put a price on how difficult it has been. My life has been regularly kind of the same. There was a time where I was at home all the time. I've been working from home a lot, but it hasn't changed all that much. I see a lot of blame put on Donald Trump for this, and I think that's where you look for, for all this. All this different stuff that has happened. But then, if you look at, we didn't blame Obama for anything that happened on the swine flu. And then just a couple things that happened. So when COVID came out and it was kind of a thing that was happening, Nancy Pelosi was down in Chinatown saying, it's okay, everyone come out. De Blasio in New York was saying, go to the movies, don't be scared. When Trump did the China ban, Biden called him xenophobic and said that he wouldn't have done the same thing. And so Trump, I know, has downplayed it through his words. I'll say that. I think he has. But I also think that if you went up there and just started losing your mind, if George Bush during 9/11 would have been freaking out and not being this calm, collected person to lead us through that. Do I think Donald Trump's handled it as well as he could? No. But I also think that people put a lot of emphasis on what Donald Trump says, but I don't listen to Donald Trump for my medical advice. I don't listen to Donald Trump to know whether or not I should go out to the store or whether I should take a vaccine. And I don't think you do either. I don't think Democrats do, but they act like what he says is what gives all this kind of movement behind it. So I just kind of want to know your thoughts on, because I've seen a lot of things that this is Trump's fault. And another thing that I guess I saw, there was 4 or 5 governors in states that Democrat governors that put COVID positive people into nursing homes. And if you look at Pennsylvania, it was 68% of the deaths in there were nursing homes. Andrew Cuomo, Tom Wolf of Pennsylvania, so one of them. Andrew Cuomo in New York, it was almost 70% of deaths in New York from nursing homes. Phil Murphy in New Jersey, which is another super high state for coronavirus deaths. Gavin Newsom in California, one of the highest deaths of coronavirus. And Governor Whitmer in Michigan, another super high coronavirus death. And so I'm not blaming the Democrat Party for that, but that's an irresponsible thing, at least in my opinion. They won't even release nursing home deaths in Michigan. So I'm just curious, why do you think all this blame is on Donald Trump, that he's dropped the ball so hard, especially when the PPE wasn't replaced from when Obama was there? I know there's conflicting stories on that, but apparently there was no N95 masks in the stockpile. That could be wrong. That's what I've seen on multiple news networks. But I just want to know, why is there such a thing with Donald Trump that he did everything wrong? He couldn't have done anything right, I think a lot of it is news, but I've seen just so much stuff, and I just want to know, why is it all Donald Trump's fault? And why is it not more on the selective states that govern people closer, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think he definitely does share some of the responsibility. The United States currently is at around 200,000 deaths, which has been probably the most tragic thing that's happened this year, I would say. I think, honestly, I don't think he takes the entirety of the blame, though. I think a lot of the blame belongs to the people of the United States. I work in a public bank, and I see people come in, and although wearing a mask right now is mandated in the state of Utah, we do get people that come in not wearing masks and not social distancing. And so I think he has a part of the blame, but I think so does the American people. One thing that really bothered me, however, this past weekend, and honestly throughout all of coronavirus, is how Donald Trump has downplayed corona. I think it was like a week ago or so when he did a rally in, was that Arizona or Nevada?
Arizona's where I know he's in Arizona. He's in both, actually.
Yeah, I think it was in Arizona. He broke the state's regulation that required 50 people to an indoor setting, where he had hundreds of people that are gathered at this rally, and very little of them were wearing masks. And so just the fact that he would break not only the state's mandations for the coronavirus, but also the federal mandated coronavirus procedures. And so it just shows that he doesn't seem to care. Honestly, he's not taking it very seriously. And then the way that I see him treat Dr. Fauci's advice to wear a mask and to be safe, and then he goes to Mount Rushmore and does that huge thing on the 4th of July with thousands of people where social distancing is not required in South Dakota, or neither is wearing a mask. And so it just, to me, it seems like he's taking it very lightly. And to have 200,000 deaths, I don't know. I feel like we should be having a national mandate to wear a mask in public. And it would be great to see the president do that, to show that he does take it seriously and to set an example for a lot of supporters. And I guess another thing that bothers me too is I don't think wearing a mask should be politicized. I think everyone should wear a mask, whether you're on the left or the right. I know right now it's a big thing that liberals wear masks and social distance, but the right is above that because it's not a real virus or whatever. But I think we should all just have to wear a mask and be considerate of those who do have a low immune system or who are a bit more elderly.
Well, I appreciate a lot of what you said. I think that I mean, at least at the beginning, you started off by saying that it's not all Trump's fault, and I think that's a big step because for everyone else, it's all Trump's fault. So a couple things that you said there. So I think that it's time that if you want to go out and you want to do something, you're able to do it. I think if Donald Trump's holding a rally and you want to go and you're not worried about coronavirus, you should be able to go and you reap the consequences that come with that. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. You can stay in your house. If you don't want to go out to the grocery store, you don't have to. You can stay in your house. I will never be on board with people who go into a bank and say that I'm not going to wear a mask. If you go into a private establishment, they can tell you to leave. You have to do what they say. You're shopping at their place. You're banking there. They're providing a service for you. As far as the government mandating and forcing you to wear an article of clothing or a mask or anything like that, I think it's unconstitutional, and I don't think it's really something that they can do. But I think I wear a mask every time I go out. I don't have any problem with it. I don't drive with it in my car. I don't mow my lawn with a mask on. But I think that if you're really worried about coronavirus, you should stay at home. I think that we've seen that masks may work, but they don't work 100% of the time. But if I think people are able to make their own decisions and decide the risk analysis. We let people jump out of airplanes. We let them do stunts jump over school buses on dirt bikes. We let them do all these things that are dangerous. I don't think coronavirus is very dangerous. You have a 99.97% chance of survival. If you have an underlying health condition, you should be able to figure out that you probably need to stay home, and we should accommodate that. I think that if you're an able person, a young, healthy person, you should go back to work. And if you don't want to, it's kind of tough luck there. But if you have an underlying health condition or you're old, I think that's something that we can do. I think it's an unpopular opinion in the conservative area, but I don't want anyone to die. I don't want you to have to feel like you're going to die. We saw the revised CDC numbers where only 6% out of the 200,000 had no underlying health conditions, and 80% of those 6% were 85 and older. So the chances of you dying, me or you, is extremely low. And if you want to go to a Donald Trump rally, a Joe Biden rally, whatever it is, not wear a mask, I don't really have a problem with it. But if you are old, you should take the proper precautions. But I definitely see your point of view as well. But I think that you have the freedom to do what you want. I'm sick of seeing protests about it. I think that if the government is going to mandate that you wear a mask, that's where it crosses the line. You shouldn't have to walk your dog and wear a mask. You shouldn't have to. And maybe I didn't read into Joe Biden's from what he said. Someone asked a question, if when you walk out of your house, do you put on a mask? He said yes. I don't know if that's something I really agree with. I think if you can walk to your car without putting a mask on, or you can drive without putting a mask on. But I just don't think it's the government's job to tell you that you have to do something. If a store wants to, I'm totally fine with that. But no, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think it's unconstitutional to do that. Maybe we disagree there. I'll let you go again.
Yeah, I think this is just one of those things where we're gonna have to agree to disagree. Like we're definitely, brothers for life. But that's one of those things where I think it would be a responsible thing right now to ensure that at least the vast majority of Americans are wearing a mask and are being safe. And I think it would be responsible by the federal government to mandate such a thing. It kind of, for me, it's not an article of clothing, but it's a safety precaution. It's like wearing a seatbelt in your car. Like right now, that's regulated. It's illegal to not wear your seatbelt while you're driving. And so we're not taking away anybody's constitutional rights by making them wear a seatbelt, but it's just safer for the driver, for those in the vehicle, and for anything that they might come into contact with.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, except for, whether you classify it as art of clothing or not, it sort of is. I think it's unconstitutional, and that's why I don't support it. But I support wearing masks. So I guess that's where maybe I don't like the principle of it, but I'll agree with you that, my wife takes care of people in a retirement home. For now, at least, she got a new job. But I think we haven't done anything. We got invited to go bowling, and I said no, because I think that she has the responsibility as a caretaker to do what she can to not get coronavirus and infect those. I think that's a decent human being, but do I think the government has the power to force me to wear a mask? I don't think so. We disagree. That's okay. I think that's how it's going to be on all these. So going along with COVID, did you see the Nancy Pelosi hair thing?
No, I don't think I saw that.
So Nancy Pelosi went to a salon and got a blowout, so basically a wash and dry of your hair, which seems like you could do that at home. And she didn't wear a mask, and they got her on film and posted it, and people went crazy. When she was asked about it, she said that the salon owes her an apology for setting her up, which seems a little bit odd because you can't be set up by making an appointment and going to a salon. And I just want to know, I know that she doesn't represent all Democrats, but it'd be nice if we could look at a little bit of blame. But it bugs me because I've been working so hard, especially with my wife, in the nursing homes, but that she is so hypocritical that she doesn't wear a mask when she goes out and shuts down salons that don't. Well, I guess shuts down salons in general, but she is okay to go get her hair blow dried, and then says that she's owed an apology when there's people that have funerals going on and they can't go. I had to go to the hospital a couple weeks ago, and my wife wasn't allowed with me in the emergency room because of COVID. There's people dying on the bedside, and Nancy Pelosi is okay to go out and say that she's owed an apology for that. Do you have any comments? I know you didn't see it, so it's kind of hard to comment on something you haven't seen, but those are the basic details.
Yeah, I'm not going to make an excuse for being irresponsible. I think that was a very foolish thing to do, especially in a time right now where cases are increasing. I think today Utah had around 747 cases, and I know this wasn't in Utah, but I think back to school all across the nation is going to have a big spike in cases. And so, yeah, I don't think there's an excuse for it. That was an irresponsible act. So we might agree on that.
Cool. And I think that I'm not saying Republicans are perfect, and I have a liberal on, and so I'm going to ask you about liberal people. But cool. That was awesome. That's like maybe the first for this. So we have about maybe like 33 minutes, 23 minutes maybe. What do we want to talk about? I think that we could go to audience questions if you want. You want to do that? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's make sure I have all the questions. Oh, here we go. I don't want you to see because I don't want to out anybody. Okay, so the first one that I have, I'm not going to ask all of them because a lot of them were the same. Let's go to the one that was most commonly asked. And I thought it was interesting because I would have assumed that you had seen it. But there's a video going around. It's been going around for a while of Joe Biden at one of these things. He's kind of touching people awkwardly, kissing and getting really close, having girls stand next to him, asking young girls their age while not asking young boys their age. I posted on YouTube. In the first hour, I got 112 views without me posting about it. YouTube took it down for inappropriate behavior. I'm going to post it again, but it's probably going to get taken down again, and my phone's probably tapped now. But I showed Logan the video before, so I know a lot of you asked. I think there's probably 9 or 10 people that did that. We had, I don't know how many, but it's close to like 50 or 60 questions total, and then like maybe 30 that weren't duplicates. So maybe if you just want to talk about what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, first off, just want to thank you for showing me that video to give me a little bit more clarification about the questions. It was a little bit of a weird video. I didn't get to watch the full entire press conference. I just saw clips where
the highlights.
Yeah, the highlights where Joe Biden was there taking pictures with the families and with the children. And there was a pattern there where you could see where he would stand closer to the children. I think that could be explained a little bit. Normally when you're taking a picture, especially as a candidate, you do want to surround yourself with children just to show that you're a friendly and loving guy. However, there was some kind of offset behavior, I guess, with probably a little bit too much touching on their shoulders, and then I guess helping them move their hair. And there was a couple times where he gave the children a kiss, which could be considered sweet to some, but I could see where that would also be bothersome to many others. And so I think you're right. Like, definitely he could have handled that differently. I don't want to give him an excuse. I think everybody needs to take responsibility for the way that they act. I don't know. I've also dealt with a lot of people around his similar age demographic that are very loving with children, that touch their face or give them a kiss on the cheek like it's a normal thing, and that seems odd to us as Gen Z or millennials. But Yeah, I think it definitely could have been handled maybe a bit more professionally, and he still could have demonstrated that he was loving and kind.
Cool. That was one of the biggest questions. Do you have any other ideas of what the next biggest question would have been?
The next biggest question.
Yeah.
No, not really. I figure maybe they would talk about probably the allegations, I guess.
No, but that okay, that was probably the third one. So the next one was his cognitive mental state. I don't know if you saw the most recent one that actually happened today, but he was hugging his wife and he popped out and said, "Hey, my name is Joe Biden. I'm Joe Biden's husband," for like the fourth time. I don't know why that's the thing that he says all the time. What are your thoughts on his cognitive state, I guess? And then my next question, I'm going to tie all these into everything because there's so many. The use of a teleprompter everywhere he goes, which is kind of not super typical of politicians, especially when answering questions. He only appears on shows that have pre-recorded questions that he has answers to, which seems a little bit odd. Every time he goes off cue, there's some kind of fumble. I think it's every time that I've ever seen it. And then there was a couple, actually only one. And you know who you are, I'm not going to out you out here, but they talked about how he'll only go on CNN for the town hall. ABC reached out to him, but they said no because they wanted to do live questions and not have preset questions. Just maybe if you wanted to answer all that, why he won't go on there. I mean, obviously we know why, so maybe a dumb question, but I just wanted to bring that to light. I don't know if you knew about that or not, but go ahead and take the floor.
Yes, sir. I mean, I guess first off, I'd just like to say, man, woman, person, camera, TV. I think President Donald Trump and Joe Biden both struggle with their mental capacity. They both have said some things that are just blows my mind, honestly. I have no idea how they both ended up being the two candidates for this election. I think, I don't know. I don't want to be ageist, I guess is the correct term, but since they are both a little bit older, I think they do both struggle with their words. Joe Biden has shown many different examples where he has said repeating things, or if he said something that was kind of off or unusual. And Donald Trump has gone on his rants too about nothing for all 4 years. And so I think you're right. They both are just horrible public speakers, and they might be slowing down a little bit. But I do think that both candidates still are capable of leadership. I don't think either one is mentally unfit for office. I think that they both, although I might disagree with their policies, I think they're right with Donald Trump. You know, he's not. It's not like he's mentally unfit. I think he could still lead the nation, and with Joe Biden as well, I think that he's mentally capable of leading the nation.
Yeah, I guess this question isn't for me, but I think my personal opinion, at least, is that Donald Trump may be stupid sometimes. I think he's pretty sharp as far as comebacks and witty stuff on his feet. I think that my personal opinion is probably not super popular in your sphere, but I think that Joe Biden actually has some sort of dementia. Just from the things that I've seen, I think Donald Trump definitely says dumb stuff, and like you said, it's interesting to see that this is the two that we have. And so that was another question that was there, but I think that it's different. But decide for yourself. I'm excited for the debate that may or may not happen. There's a theory going around that Joe Biden's going to say he has COVID before the debate and can't go. So if it happens, you heard it here first. Okay, so next up. Who do we want to go with? I want to get some interesting ones because we don't have a ton of time left. Okay, how do you feel about Kamala Harris calling Joe Biden a racist before she was picked as VP?
Yeah, I've looked into that, and the statement where...
I'm just going to preface one thing. He also goes on to say, and don't just say it's a debate like she did.
Yeah, I was not planning on saying that. But I have looked into it. I've read the comments where she called him a racist, and I've looked at why. And I think she was probably in the right. You know, some of the comments he said were a little bit edgy. And so her coming from, I think it's like South Asian descent and also African American descent, she's seen what it feels like to be discriminated, and she made that comment too, where she was in that second grade class, where I think she was the second school in the state of California to introduce or to kind of get rid of segregation. And so, I would agree that the things that he said were edgy and that he should not have done it. And so I think now they've moved on, and they seem to be getting along really well together. And I don't think that Joe Biden is a racist. I think that he has said some dumb things in the past, where I remember that one comment where he said, if you're black and you don't vote for Joe Biden, then you ain't black, was his exact comment.
That's one of the questions here. I'm not even joking. It says, can you be black and vote for Joe Biden? Serious question. Or sorry, can you be black and vote for Donald Trump? Serious question.
Yeah, so I think that was a horrible comment. It was dumb of him to say that. That was just completely irresponsible. But I do think that Joe Biden is not a racist. I think that he has the best interest for the American people. And, you can look at things that Donald Trump has done before he was president, where he had all those, where he wouldn't allow African Americans to rent in one of his apartment buildings that he owned. And, there's been some other edgy things where he called the head scarf that the Islamic community wears a Muslim uniform, and kind of said some other racy, edgy things.
Yeah, I don't know if that's racist. I think it's more he's dumb and didn't know what it was called and forgot, but I'll give you that, yeah.
Yeah, let's just agree that they both have said some really dumb things, and there's no excuse for racism.
Here's my question, though, and this isn't off this, but this is me. Why is Donald Trump a racist, but Joe Biden just said some dumb things, And maybe you're not saying that, but in the media, Joe Biden has said that poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I feel like that's racist. He said that you can't go... you listened to the podcast that I did. He said he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle. He said that you have to be a tad bit Indian or have a slight Indian accent to shop at a Dunkin' Donuts or a 7-Eleven. And he prefaced that after with, I'm not joking. I made sure to put that one in there. There's so many things, and Donald Trump is taken out of context a lot. I think that he has said some dumb things. You look at the one where he's talking about MS-13 and said rapists and murderers. Probably not the smartest thing to say, but MS-13 is a brutal gang that's awful. He gets taken out of context so much, and he's a racist. And then when it's Joe Biden, he's not a racist. He's just, he's just Joe. And I don't think Joe Biden's necessarily a racist. I don't think Donald Trump's necessarily a racist either. But it's tiring as a Trump supporter that I'm always called a racist for my beliefs. Donald Trump is called a racist, but Joe Biden's not. Well, Joe Biden was until Kamala needed to be picked as VP. So I just want to know your thoughts. I don't know if you think Trump's a racist. I think most people on the left do. But it just seems like those four examples especially, and then not wanting your kids to grow up in a racial jungle, talking about desegregating schools, I feel like that's pretty damning, and that's pretty crazy that you can say that and it just goes away and no one talks about it, right? And I know the media is definitely different. I don't know if that's even up for debate that they are against Donald Trump other than Fox News and the Aiden Bird podcast, of course. But if no one's going to do it, I got to do it. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a deep question for sure. I guess we would have to just agree to the terms that, because both have made racist remarks, I think we would have to agree that they're either both racist or that they're both not racist, because you can't have one person make remarks and claim that they're racist and then the other person make remarks and claim that they're not. And so that's a great question. I think, I don't know. I think I guess I would have to say that they're both not racist.
We did it.
I think definitely some dumb things have been said, though.
For sure. I think when you're in the political spotlight for all your day, every day, you probably said some stupid things. I know I've said dumb things when I was in high school or middle school that are probably terrible. I don't remember them, but I'm definitely a changed guy, and you change, and I'm just tired of the cancel culture that's so far back. But so I'm going to answer some questions from people on Trump. There's like 3 of them. The first one was, why are you the way that you are? And you know who did that. So I don't know, just because I'm a freaking tank, I guess. I don't know. No, I think that. I don't think.
I gotta know who said that.
It's pretty obvious who said it, but they don't listen to this podcast anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm gonna move on from that one. That was kind of funny. Has President Trump united our country or caused a further divide? Honest question. And he prefaced that. So I responded with, can you give me some examples of where you thought he divided the country? No response, unfortunately. But I think that's a fair question. And I think that, I don't know if Donald Trump's united the country. I definitely wouldn't say that. But I also think that a lot of it is a misconception on words based off the media. I know we hear fake news all the time, but the media is against him. We've seen it time and time again. And the more that we talk about how terrible Trump is, they never stop talking about him. I think that creates a further divide. I think if we took Trump at face value, it'd be better. But no, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's united the country, because he definitely hasn't. I think he could do a better job of that. Some of the things when Trump says something I like, I praise him. When he says something that I hate, I say that it's awful. And there's definitely times where I think that he could have done a better job at those things. Overall, I think he loves this country and wants what's best for it. But I also think he's not a perfect guy, and I think he needs to do all that he can to help unite this country if he wins again. But I also think it's hard to be united when you have a constant media presence saying that he is a racist and that he is a homophobic. And he said some poor things in the past. That's a thing with all politicians, other than maybe, I don't even know if you could think of one.
That's a politician with a perfect record.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I think Ted Cruz is a good guy. Is he perfect? No. I think Rand Paul's a good guy. Is he perfect? No. But yeah, anyway, that's a good question, honestly. I don't think he's helped with those problems at all. What are your thoughts on Trump being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? I don't really care about it, to be honest with you. Obama won it, and then Obama said he didn't deserve it because he didn't really do anything. I don't really think that Donald Trump is the one doing a lot of the things that happen. I think presidents get credit for everything and get blamed for everything. If he wins it, cool. If he doesn't, I don't really care. The peace deal in Israel was kind of cool. I thought that was interesting. No one asked you about that, but we're getting pretty close on time here. Man, we got to do another episode because there's just so much stuff. Let's see if we can give you one more question before you go. Here's one that I think we both could answer. This is one that I've actually had. Is there any politicians on the right, and I'll give you one for the left, that you think you could go out and have dinner with and really like as a person, but just disagree with politically? I think me and you could obviously do that, but as far as like a politician on the left, I would have a hard time with a lot of them, I think, just because I'm so off. And I think that, I don't know, and maybe this is wrong of me to think, but I think that like a lot of Republicans don't agree with your policy, but I think a lot of leftists, and I've seen it in my comments, think I'm an awful person, a racist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a bigot, a sexist because of my views. And so they can't sit down with me and have a conversation because I'm just such an awful person. But I don't think people really think that about the left. So maybe if you just want to talk about who you like on the right, maybe not politically, but as a person.
Yeah, I think it was easy for me to choose someone. I know he's the least respected Republican on the right. Probably Senator Mitt Romney.
You gotta pick somebody else, bro. You can't pick someone on the left.
He is on the right.
Yeah, he's not on the right. Come on, pick someone real.
Hear me out. He's a great guy. I think that was responsible of him to vote the way he did in the impeachment trials.
I think he's gross.
I know that you supported him.
I did.
Before this year.
I've called his office multiple times and left complaints since then.
Yeah.
I think he's
I know that Utah,
coward.
I think everyone in Utah loved Mitt Romney. When he ran for president in 2006, was it, or 2008? Everyone in Utah loved Mitt Romney. They were all backing him. And then as soon as he decides to do what he thought was best, he's totally attacked. And I understand it disagrees with the common belief here in Utah. And I see Trump calling him all these names, calling him. He said he was like an undercover Democrat and calling him like a spy and all these weird nicknames. But I think that he would be a great guy that I would love to have dinner with.
I agree that I've met Mitt Romney. He's a jerk, but he just wasn't very nice. But anyway, I think Mitt Romney's a scumbag. I think he definitely changed after Donald Trump won and just trashed on him, and then he lost his mind and just was hurt his ego. But he's trash. Anyway,
his mind has never been so clear.
Anyway, I'm gonna give you some real answers of people who are actually left. They might be more center, but yeah, Romney's a rhino. Anyway, I think Tulsi Gabbard's one. Okay. I think she's pretty cool. I definitely disagree with her on a lot of stuff, but I really respect her and thought she deserved more support. Maybe she should run on the right. I don't think she'd win here either. But I definitely disagree with Andrew Yang as well. But I think he's a cool guy.
He's different.
You wouldn't sit down with Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz isn't your cup of tea? I feel like he's nice.
He seems like a good guy. I would have preferred Ted Cruz over Donald Trump.
Same.
Honestly, I think it would be great to sit down with just about any politician and hear their ideas and learn from them. So if Ted Cruz wanted to hit me up, just let him know I'm waiting for that call and I'm ready to go out to dinner with the dude.
Yeah, I just realized that there's still 3 more pages of questions that we didn't even touch that were behind another photo that I screenshotted that I took later. So, but I got to go. Man, it's been awesome to talk to you. I've had a lot of fun. Hopefully this is something that people enjoy. Maybe just to close, maybe if you just want to talk about your experience here for other liberals. I'm trying my hardest to get them on here. They're not going to all think like you, but if you want to just give me your thoughts.
Yeah, of course. I've loved my experience here on the Aiden Bird podcast. It's a welcoming environment. He's open to hear about my ideas, and although we disagree, we remain friends. And so no matter what the question is or the policy that we're talking about, I know that my relationship with Aiden is going to stay the same. And so I just want to invite all of my friends. Like, you guys know who you are. We talk about it all the time. Me and all of the other Democrats that I hang out with and listen to NPR with. So I just want to invite all you guys to come out on the Aiden Bird podcast and share your beliefs. I don't expect you to change anyone's mind, but it is nice just to see what you believe and talk about the way you feel.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And my turn now. TrustScale USA. I've told you about it. I hope it's helping. I gotta get one. I have mission belts, but I think that belt is dope. That you don't have to see any of the belt on the other side. Yeah. I haven't seen it in person. I don't know if you wear them. I'm not wearing them. Not one currently. We should have done that. But no, definitely check them out. I need to go get some stuff over there. But I guess the thing that I had a couple questions on that people reached out. What is the logo? Is it so that you never fall down? Basically, is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The logo represents that no matter how many times you fall or how hard you fall, you will always land on your feet. And so one of the legs, it's 3 legs in the symbol, but one of the legs is actually a prosthetic leg. And so we've been getting a lot of support from amputees and cancer survivors, people with other serious health conditions that have reached out to us and have really offered support. Just this last week, we shipped out a hat to a guy in New York who's an amputee. I think in total we've probably reached out and shipped out gear to probably 10 or so different amputees. But it's been really cool just to kind of have a brand for positivity and help people that are struggling with different health conditions.
I think it's really cool, man, and that's why I'll talk about it every episode, because I think it's cool. Thank goodness for capitalism, right? Give me that. None of that socialist bullcrap in here. Just had to get that in there too. But no, seriously, thanks for coming on. I loved it. I'd have you on all that you want. My last plea to you: every day I listen to an hour of NPR. Okay, I listen to probably 9 hours of podcasts a day at work and everything. For the next week, will you listen to an hour of the Ben Shapiro Show for me?
I will do my best. Wait, sorry, 1 hour for the week or
1 hour a day?
Oh, 1 hour a day.
Give me 5 hours.
All right, I can do that.
5 hours?
Yeah, as long as I can still get the Aiden Bird podcast in there.
Yeah, you gotta. This is way before Ben. But no, seriously, thank you to all of you. Wow, it's been it's been incredible to start this in my basement. I started recording in a room over there. It's not really that great, to be honest with you. We have a nice setup now with the video, and we have decent things, good mics. I mean, it's decent, but the amount of people that have come through and I've been able to sit and talk with, it's definitely humbling. And the fact that I was able to get Trent Staggs, who's running for county mayor, who you need to vote for, and Anthony Lube, who's running for the House in Utah as well, vote for him. It's truly humbling, and I just appreciate it. Our views have gone from a couple hundred to over 1,000. I hope that transfers over to YouTube. My guess is it won't, because I'm sure people listen in the car. But thank you, each and every one of you. Definitely check out Trescale USA. And other than that, I think people are going to want you back on the podcast. I think this was a lot of fun, and we were able to finish on some good stuff. So thank you for coming, Logan.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Aiden Bird podcast.